Welcome back. It is episode 116. I am your host, Jacob Harris, and this podcast is brought to you by Achievement Apex and PowerPeak Rockingham, which is where I am right now. And today I am joined by Matthew Vincent. Thank you for being here, man.
What's up, mate? Happy to be here, man.
Well, it is my pleasure. As I had mentioned before, I've been following you for a while now, and there's a lot to talk about. There's being, in the Highland Games. There's a couple of things that you do yourself with brand goods and not dead, the not dead yet kind of. I don't even know necessarily. I know you run it kind of like a brand, but it's almost a bit of an ideology as well. So I wanted to kind of delve
For
pretty deep
sure.
into that. But you run your own podcast, you do a lot of things.
Do a
I
lot of things.
It's really hard to know where to start. Usually with people I start, I guess, where like the fitness journey side of things started.
Yeah,
But for you, you've obviously got a pretty unique way of thinking. And I know that a lot of that kind of has to do with a few life changes that happened along the way for you. Could you tell us a bit about where you grew up and what your experiences were in terms of lifestyle and how you fell into fitness?
sure. So I grew up small town Louisiana, southern United States, um, to what felt like a pretty standard American home at the time. 1983 year I was born. I'm recently 40 in April, and yeah, I grew up playing sports. We lived in kind of a small town, 25,000 people or so. Both my parents worked. My mom was a teacher, and my dad worked at the refineries as a boilermaker, and then eventually like a supervisor for turnarounds and shutdowns, and when they had big projects to get done. And both worked the same job their entire lives. Uh, Lived in the same town their entire lives. So grew up in that kind of normal small town mentality. I don't think I ever felt like I wasn't supposed to leave, but I knew as soon as I could get out of there, I was going. And got a chance with a track and field scholarship. So that's really what led me into the strength and fitness world to begin with, would have been training for performance for athletics. I got into football and everything else in the South. And so high school training at my high school was really serious. We had a good group of kids, learned how to lift, got really strong, and had a good football team. And then through that strength training I got made me a better shot putter. And so then I ended up on a track and field scholarship to LSU and kind of continued down that path, learning how to lift and continuing to get stronger, and graduated college as a very average college shot putter and very average discus thrower and very average hammers thrower, and kind of took on entrepreneurship as the first chance there with a bicycle shop, and burned down in a couple, lost it. Just wasn't a great business to run, man. I just didn't do a very good job. 22-year-old me wasn't excellent at doing that. 22-year-old me was far more excited about being able to say that I was an entrepreneur than I was any of the work it takes to be an entrepreneur. Um, and so left that, went into the corporate world, man, and didn't train for a couple years, got kind of fat. And then as a fat guy who's used to being strong, got into strongman and then powerlifting. Was a natural fit. And then eventually found some Highland Games is where the chubby strong kids can go hang out. And got into Highland Games and loved it, man. I love the pursuit of max strength. I love training for that sport. I love how complicated it is. I love the figuring out the technique and mastering it. I like that I could train for it by myself. Um, and so that kind of gets us closer to this. We finished up competing in the Highland Games due to a knee injury, had a handful of surgeries and a total knee replacement, which kind of shook things up a bit as far as what fitness was going to look like, because I can't really lift or do any of the things that I like to as far as strength and health, fitness goes. So it took a lot of rework to decide what are we going to get better at now and how do we make those changes. So I think
Yeah,
that
well,
loosely answered your question, but
No, yeah, it was perfect. To be honest, it was. I will compliment you on your summarization of your life with a lot of dot points. I think a lot of people would probably struggle to not peer off on tangents, and you created a good picture, I think, and people listening will feel the same. But also, I guess to land on where you just finished with the knee injury, that probably would have been pretty tough within itself, given that you said at the start you were track and field. So you have you always done a bit of running, or like obviously you went through periods of not.
No. Running, track and field. We're emphasis on the field part.
Oh, okay.
I got into shot put, like in middle school,
Yeah.
and then did it through high school, found some success, and then was able to go off to university for it. And then came back around another 8 or 9 years later, post college, getting into the Highland Games.
Okay. So the
It's
knee
essentially a
was,
lot of the same. Yeah, the knee was good all the way through all that.
yeah, but it's only an issue now with obviously strength training, or you have to be wary of it.
Yeah, I mean, had total knee replacement in 2019, and so now I don't think deadlifting 700 pounds or squatting 700 pounds again is really helpful. It
You,
also doesn't get me to any of my goals anymore. You know what I mean?
but you did squat. You squatted 700 pounds, did you?
Yeah.
Or deadlifted? Wow. Are they well both? So deadlift and squat were both 700 pounds.
Yep.
When did you bench press?
440 is my best.
Wow. Okay. What federation did you compete in?
I competed in a handful of different ones. I competed geared for a while in the APF, and so ended up posting. What did I do? 1,000 pound squat, 7 deadlift, and a 7 bench.
Wow.
Um, and then competed raw. I don't really remember. We were talking about 2007, 2008. I don't know what federation that was anymore. I did it in knee sleeves, like knee sleeves and a belt.
Yeah.
Whatever puts me in that realm. I don't know if it was USAPL or not.
It's kind of what I had in mind, but then as we
Yeah.
discussed before as well, I remember how big America is, and I'm like, there's probably so many
Oh, it's a
federations.
disaster. A disaster, man. Um, and like I would always do a powerlifting meet or even like a weightlifting meet in the off season just to stay sharp because usually in the off seasons when I'm kind of hitting max strength stuff anyway because I don't really need it in season as a thrower. Everything in season needs to be power production. It needs to be moving fast. And so off season, yeah, I would enter a weightlifting meet, and those are fun too. I think I ended up my best being like a clean and jerk of like 192, 196 or something like that, and then a snatch at like 152 or 158, something.
Yeah. Okay. We talking pounds?
No, kilos. It's weightlifting.
Oh, so yeah. Okay. So what? 192 kilos,
Yep.
clean and jerk. Wow. That's how heavy were you?
275 plus. So usually 280, 290.
Still crazy. I feel like that's definitely something I did not know. That's like elite. Is that elite level? I feel like it is. That's
I don't know.
yeah.
They're very ugly lifts, and like by no means am I a weightlifter.
Yeah. I think
Very strong at a period of time.
yeah, almost 200 kilos over your head is must have been pretty crazy. It's interesting how versatile your experience in the strength world has been. Like obviously you're aware a lot of people kind of pick one, and that's hard
Mhm.
enough for most people. So it's cool that you've had the ability to not only do powerlifting and weightlifting, but then the Highland Games is an interesting one because I feel like a lot of people don't actually know what's involved in it. And I only know a little bit more about it now because I know someone else that did it, and
Yeah.
it just looks awesome. But I mean, could you give us a bit of, I guess, like a
Yeah.
summary
So
of like what you did?
it's nine throwing events, right? So all the events are throwing, and the big difference between the Highland Games, we have the caber, which is the one kind of everyone recognizes, which is the one that looks like the big telephone pole. And then everything else are like we have 6 events we throw for distance. So 2 stones, we throw like a shot put, 2 weights, and then 2 hammers. We throw 2 height events with a weight over bar, and then a sheaf, which is a 20-pound bag you throw for height with a pitchfork. It's a fucking wacky event. But great fun. Launching a pitchfork 30 feet in the air is super fun. Or not a pitchfork, a bag. Um, yeah, it was a great sport. And like the difference between powerlifting and weightlifting and strongman for me with Highland Games, one, having the track and field background, you basically have cheat codes for the sport. Like you know how to do all the events basically at like a collegiate level instead of coming in as an amateur. So you just have this depth of knowledge of how to do it. And then, unlike the other sports, right? Like the weights never get heavier. So the stones weigh the same. The weights we throw for distance stay the same, and they'll never change. They haven't changed in 700 years. And so it's about being able to throw them further than you could before. And that's not simply a max strength based thing. It's speed, technique, and strength. And so I really like the balance of all three of those. And so powerlifting was something I could do relatively well because max strength still mattered. And then weightlifting was something I trained for anyway because I liked the movements. I learned how to do them in high school. And then, weightlifted a lot in college as a thrower. Those movements translate to throwing really well.
Yeah, it's a different, like it was sort of like, as you mentioned it before, it's when we're talking about producing power and that kind of force, it's obviously you don't want to be focusing on lifting heavy things slowly, which is something
No,
like
it doesn't translate at all. I'm throwing a 16-pound rock.
yeah, it's well. I mean, I understand a lot more because I not long ago I spoke to a hammer thrower from Australia, and even just him explaining the sport hammer throwing is another thing.
It's awesome.
Man, just hearing him explain it and watching videos of it, I was like,
so much going on.
oh, it's incredible. Like it's
I mean, dude, the big guys are throwing like 84, 85 meters.
yeah.
Like the force that you're putting on a 16-pound ball in a 8-foot circle is fucking bonkers.
It's like I think as well we can get. I speak with a lot of powerlifters, and I've got a lot of mates who do powerlifting, and it's like not that that's all impressive in its own right. It's you wouldn't compare them, but it's crazy when you go from that to a sport that just there's so much more involved. But I guess anybody from an outside perspective that doesn't really understand it would just look at it and think like, oh, strength sports. But they're so different, and weightlifting from powerlifting is different. But as soon as we start talking about what some of the stuff you were doing, like you said, there's a lot to it. There's a lot of technique that is just.
That's why there's not like a huge audience for it, right? Because it just doesn't translate well.
You think it would be though?
Well, there's some stuff does, right? Like the caber translates well because people watch that and it's a black or white pass fail. Same with the height events. The height events the crowd loves, but any of the distance events, I mean, let's say we're throwing the light hammer, so the 16-pound hammer. If I throw it 140 feet, I'm one of the best in the world. If I throw it 135 feet, I'm really okay.
Mm.
And those two distances don't look like shit from 200 feet away in the stands. It just doesn't translate.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. It's always going to be that spectacle stuff, right? It's like, man, you've been to powerlifting meets. Everyone just wants to see deadlifts, right? Like I know what it's like over there, but notoriously here, bench press is just boring for everyone.
Yeah. I think bench press has always kind of been the bummer of the three.
It has, yeah, and it's but at the same time, when you see someone bench a record or something, everyone's still fairly excited. But yeah, deadlifts come on and it's a different story. But the Highland and like the actual games themselves and the two that you won, how did that kind of work out? Was it did you have to win every event or did you just win a certain amount and then
Yeah, so the way it's scored, right, is over the course of the day you have 9 events, and each event you have, I don't know, 10 or 12 athletes. And so the first place in each event gets 1 point, second place gets 2 points, and then low score at the end of the day wins the overall.
Yeah.
It's kind of like golf.
Kind of like golf, yeah.
Yeah. Very much like golf, almost identical sport.
No.
Yeah, so that's the way it works. Yeah, so the two that I won would have been like world championships in 2012, which was in Ontario, Canada at Fergus, and then 2014 was in Scotland. in Dunfermline, and worlds are invite only type thing, and so they select the top 10, 12 guys in the world, come out, and we duke it out. But it's kind of, you're kind of qualified, right? Because it's the same 9 events every week for everyone. And so you can rank people throughout the season.
Yeah,
Now, with that said, there's a bit of fuckery involved, right? Like, you know where hammers fly far, and you know where there's a field that's got a hole in it because you can get an extra foot or two out of this throw. Like, there's strategy involved with trying to pad your score as best you can.
yeah, like anything, it's hard to
Yeah, of course,
completely.
man. Like, it's,
Yeah, but
yeah, like, as long as people are competing, everyone's looking for every advantage possible.
yeah, I mean, we talked about weightlifting. You probably can't. There's not too much there you can see it with, but man, we talked about powerlifting. I mean, let's be honest. That sport's got a lot to do with that. Now,
And,
it's all
and,
about
and look, I've done
advantages.
it on both ends, right? I competed in full geared briefs, squat suit, the whole nine, and
Mm.
I competed raw in USAPL.
Did you prefer gear or without it?
I, I didn't enjoy competing in either sport. I enjoyed training for both.
That's usually
I
it's
just,
funny you say that. There's a lot of the opposite response with people. I always hear people
well,
go,
I
I
just,
love,
I never found that competition environment
yeah.
terribly fun. And throwing's fun. Like, I'm in a field, I'm around other people. We're usually talking a little shit to each other and laughing. I'm in the sun. I can have a beer. Highland
Yeah.
Games is a great sport.
I think anyone hearing you
I
describe
mean,
it now is thinking, actually wouldn't
oh
mind getting
man, like,
involved in that.
okay, it's just going to be hard for me to get all fucking rocked up in some Days Inn convention room listening to shitty metal.
As opposed to good
That's,
metal, or do you think all metal shitty?
I believe there's good metal. I don't think it's my current cup of tea for what I want to listen to, but there's definitely good metal.
Well, as a quick side note, what would be your current cup of tea?
Current cup of tea is more electronic stuff. I listen to a lot of lo-fi shit. I listen to a bunch of like synth wave, no lyrics, more flow state stuff, because what I'm trying to get better at now is more running my business, more writing, more creative stuff, and that kind of tends to keep me a little bit more in that zone.
I definitely know what you're saying. It's become more popular on YouTube, those kinds of playlists. And I am
Yeah, and
myself,
I even train with it.
yeah, I don't know if I could train to it. I suppose it depends on what
Well,
kind of
because
training
training's
you're doing.
also not terribly intense anymore,
Okay.
right? It's just very different. So like one night a week, I'm doing jujitsu, and I do an hour of cardio 5 or 6 days a week in the morning, and then I kind of train sporadically throughout the day. And usually that's kind of what I use as like a break from the entrepreneur stuff to like solve problems. It's like, oh man, I can't quite figure this out right now and I need some space. Like, I can go train for a little bit and I'll usually come up with some type of a solution and then get back to work.
Well, this is cool that you mentioned this because about 8 months ago, I started jujitsu, and I think it's awesome. I was there last night,
Yeah.
and I was very sweaty, and I was being sat on by a rather large man, and it was quite it really took my breath away physically.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was it
Look,
was
I think
you
there's something we've lost as not, let's say, a culture of just humans. I think that there was a long time that we embraced each other a lot and we were able to push and pull on each other, and that keeps us in that stance. I mean, animals play this way and animals interact, and we have removed any physical touch. We've gotten to a point that all physical touch is either violent or sexual. And being
yeah.
able to have this camaraderie where you're pushing on each other, most men never do this after high school if they did it then.
Well, did you like? Because usually in I don't know. Once again, we go off movies over here. I got no idea what
Mm.
America's like, but in movies, you guys do wrestling in high school. So did you have wrestling
Yeah,
there?
so we had wrestling. I didn't do any wrestling. I played football.
Yeah, as you said,
Well,
yeah, yeah, fair
yeah,
enough. But so, what got you into
yeah,
jujitsu now?
it's fun. I'm
Yep.
I'm fucking old and I still want to learn how to do new things. And
Mm.
so I'm terrified to go to a jujitsu class because I've got a shitty hip and a fake knee. But I have a studio and training facility here that's mine, like my office. And so I bought some mats. And so once a week, usually Wednesday nights, uh, I have a couple people in and we roll for an hour or two, and then we sauna and cold plunge and call it a night.
Yeah, the sauna and cold plunge. I'm realizing is a big part of the culture. I think I need to get involved in it because I've never done either. Well, I've been in a sauna,
Well,
but like, yeah,
like I don't know how much it's part of that culture. I like it. Like
mm,
I find a big benefit from it. I know that the science behind it's really good. That I get increased blood flow. I feel better. I sleep better. I get the immune boosting. I get heat and cold shock proteins. I get testosterone boost and down regulate. Like all that happens from me sitting in a place doing nothing, whether it's hot or cold,
it's a
right?
pretty good deal.
I work really fucking hard to do the other things in my life. Like I think I can be willing to sit in a hot or cold room to get all these other benefits.
Yeah, what I suppose the reason I say it's a part of the culture is because I know a lot of fighters and whether they do
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu
Well,
or Muay Thai, it's popular.
and it works. And like
Mm.
outside of that piece of it, I do think there's some really, really important stuff. I think the community aspect of being able to sit in the sauna and hold conversation while everyone's uncomfortable is that shared suffering that I think is a bit necessary to build community and build a bond. And if
Similar
we're not going
to
to have it put on us by some external terrible force, how lucky we are to choose the suffering we choose to join each other in.
It's similar to the rolling itself, right? Like when you're rolling, you're
Right.
uncomfortable, and there's like a bond. There's like a bonding in that.
That's why there's a bond. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. And I mean, how many people right now are just lost without community?
Well, yeah, I guess that's kind of where we could delve into a little bit of some of the things that you're doing and some of the things you talk about because you mentioned, and I guess I want to start with this. You mentioned being an entrepreneur, right? Now, you're aware of the internet and how we like
I've
to
seen it.
kind of, yeah, I've seen it a bit too. And people like to really make fun of shit, right? So the whole term entrepreneur is like obviously, can gain a lot of
I
this
fucking
kind
hate it.
of, well, yeah, I mean, you used it, but it's
I'd
just
rather
because you're,
tell people I'm unemployed.
yeah, yeah, it's kind of the same thing, right? Can be,
Yeah.
but you're using it as a word to be descriptive, right? You're not using it as like
Yeah.
a label because you're proud of it, right? It's what
No,
you're doing.
it's what I do.
Yeah. So I guess taking away that kind of like possibly negative connotation some people have with it. What does it mean to you to be an entrepreneur, and why? Obviously, you'd explained that your parents grew up doing the same sort of job.
Yeah.
They didn't leave the town. That's obviously the inspiration behind it. But what does it mean to you to be one, and why did you decide to take that route?
Man, I didn't want to work for anyone, most likely. I think that's probably the root of everything is that I want freedom.
Mm,
And I really want freedom to do what I want to do. So I think anyone who's figured out how to make a living and not have to sell their time for it is an entrepreneur. Like anyone who's got that type of hustle who has figured out how to do something they enjoy doing and they want to get better at, and someone gives them money to do that, like that's entrepreneurial. Deciding to sell my time and sell my energy to someone else's dream, that's having a job.
mm.
Like I'm obligated to figure out my dreams.
I guess it's an interesting conversation, especially for maybe a lot of people that are a bit more old school, because
Sure.
I found people find it confronting. Like I've been doing this podcast for maybe 4 years, and recently
Mm-hmm.
got to a point where I am making money from it, and
Yeah,
that confuses people that are a bit
for
older.
sure.
I'll speak to someone and they'll go, What do you mean you get paid
Yeah,
to?"
man, my parents are the same way. It's like I've done this now for 10 plus years. I mean, I've had the
Mm,
brand for 10 years and had podcasts and all that. They're terribly confused. My dad passed away, which would have been really fascinating, right? Because he didn't get to see any of this shit. That would have been really fun. But my mom's been awesome. It's just fascinating to her. I mean, because the weird shit that we do that makes an income is very strange.
mm.
And whether that is podcasting or having an apparel brand or mentoring and coaching or hosting retreats or traveling with groups of people, creating experiences. I can't believe any of those things are something I get paid to do.
Considering where we were, I don't know, more than 50 years ago and what you had to do to make money, it is quite an interesting
Crazy.
concept, right?
Absolutely bonkers that this exists.
It is, but it's also, I think, important now that people can sit and have a conversation, and to an extent, like you said, we're lacking a lot in society in a few areas with people being comfortable with each other and things like that. But at least in this kind of sense, I feel like a podcast makes sometimes a podcast specifically can make someone just feel like they're in a room with other people. And I feel like that kind of does that for some people. And I had someone mention to me the other day that they related to me in something I was saying in a podcast. And then I said, well, it's funny that you say that, because the reason that you related to it is the reason I said it in the first place. And then part of me kind of went, it's interesting that you and me almost had our own little conversation without even talking to each other in that, because of just shared connection and I guess experience and understanding. So you've been with how like the podcast itself, how long's that been running?
Since 2017.
Yeah, so before, so quite a bit before COVID as well.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But did you, like, over COVID, did you find that it allowed you to still, did you do a lot over COVID and connect with people?
I've always done it because I guess once I decided I'm going to have a podcast, that means I put an episode out every week.
Mm,
And until I don't want to have a podcast, that's what I do.
good way to look at it.
And so that became the challenge during COVID of like, okay, we can still figure this out. I prefer doing them in person, but COVID opened the doors to doing them remote. And also, people are okay now with watching them remote, which is a hell of a lot less overhead than me trying to fly someone in. And if it doesn't change the viewers or doesn't change the response to it, then you know, do what gives people the most.
I
You know,
agree.
and if I can get more content done, I'd rather put out 4 more episodes a month and do them remote if they get the same amount of views me doing them in studio.
We're lucky for technology now as well, right? It's improved to the
Yeah,
point where, like, a webcam 10
it's
years
getting
ago.
better.
Oh yeah. I
It's
mean,
getting
this,
better. We're not great, but it's best we've got.
I think we're
I
doing all
mean,
right now. They're like, this microphone, this is gonna, I'm not a magician, but there's no
it's
wires
pretty
on this,
incredible.
right?
That
How's
is
it?
next level.
What's it plugged into? Um,
Yeah.
but I agree, and even I, I'm in a unique position where I move around a bit, so I don't have quite the kind of standard setup that you have yourself, but I will at
Sure.
some point, and I think it's important, like you said, to just work with what you got. I remember hearing someone just once say, "You have everything that you need right now to do what you want to do."
But to start, for
To
sure.
start, to start, yeah.
Well, and I mean, I think everyone looks at the destination of this point that they're supposed to be at,
Mm.
and it's never gonna be that way. Like at some point, you just got to start doing it. Like, and as soon as you take that first action and become accountable to showing up and doing that work every single day, you're already on that path. You're on that journey to become that person. But it doesn't become that with unless you do. I mean, even something you said a minute ago, right? About like people being able to listen to podcasts at home and feel like they are part of this conversation. It's true, and I like that. However, it does make me nervous because it does not replace in-person community. And we have enough issues with isolation as it is. And while this is great, you and I are still not making eye contact. Do you know what I mean? Like the webcam and where it's located are slightly different angles. And so we don't ever actually look at each other. It's not the same as being in person in a 3-dimensional space. And we still need that. I think it's still really important. I mean, on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Like we have food, water, and shelter. And then we've all skipped to trying to figure out self-actualization. And self-actualization does not happen before you have community and you have love and you have value.
I agree. That's an interesting point to make, and one that, yeah, like I said, I have to agree with. I guess I hope that maybe at least if someone's listening and they can relate to what they're saying, that can make them realize
Look,
that.
I fully believe it's better than nothing.
Oh, of
I
course,
fully
yeah,
believe It's great. It is fucking great.
Yeah.
But I hope that it helps someone realize that they need to be around people.
That's what
And
I
I
was,
think
yeah, going to get to.
the big abundance thing we have now with the internet is you can find people that are into shit you're into,
Mm.
but you actually have to go and be around them and be immersed in it and be you.
Yeah, as opposed to sitting in like a Reddit forum or something, it doesn't really.
Not the same.
It doesn't allow you to develop. I'm big on what you said, man, and to be honest, I'd love it for us to be able to be in a room and be having
Oh,
a conversation. Now, I'm big on it
same,
too.
dude.
I'm big on a lot of that with human connection, which is where I struggle too. I never realized, and you would have noticed it more since doing a podcast. As soon as you start to actually deal with people more in that kind of, because a podcast is fairly intimate, I think, for a lot of people.
Mhm.
Some people struggle to have a conversation for a minute, right? Like that you can see people, their eyes will wander and oh yeah, and they'll really struggle to actually just connect with you because they're nervous, they have social anxiety. So sitting
Well, it's
down with,
not just that. It's a skill.
of course, yeah.
This takes repetition.
Mm,
This isn't something that we're taught within the school system. Like, I don't know how y'all's runs compared to ours, but I bet they're pretty similar.
mm.
I mean, you sit down as kind of a faceless person in a room. You don't have to make eye contact. You're not responding. You're not learning to communicate. You know, we hope that happens in the home and we hope that happens in the neighborhood and we hope that happens through sports. But the more we've isolated and kids have gone digital, we're not getting it. And
Yeah,
especially the more that we transfer to being text based, because that's
yeah.
really dangerous.
That's a big. I don't even like saying pet peeve, but for me, the big thing for me now is people don't want to answer their phone.
No, it's tough. I guess they don't, right? Like, I get
Yeah.
it.
I'd rather
But also,
text.
I mean, look, I communicate 90% of the time via text.
Mm,
And I'm aware there's a problem with it because, look, 99% of what we get from conversation is done through nonverbal cues, from our tone, from the last 10 sentences that we've talked about, what the last hour has felt like energy wise, my facial expressions, my eye contact, my rhythm, anything. And all that's taken away in text. And so you read it in the context and through the lens of the mood that you're in.
that's a really interesting point. The way that people perceive that kind of, I guess, information, like the emotionally, like that. Yeah, I've not actually heard someone put it like that before. That's a really good point. The way that because we've all done it too. We've all been in a situation.
100%.
We're like not in the greatest mood, and you'll take something a certain way, and then 10 minutes later, you're like, oh my god, why did I take it like
Yeah.
that?
That's
Yeah.
not real.
No, it's not, and it's interesting what you're bringing up about the communication side of things because one of the conversations, I don't know what it's maybe like over there, but there's been a little bit, even just in the community that I am, there's a lot of talk about things like attention deficit disorder and things like that now.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the discussions I had with someone recently was how maybe not as many people have it as we think they do, and that's not to necessarily turn around and say like, I'm a doctor and you don't have this medical condition. But I think a
Look,
lot of people,
I think it's a spectrum like anything else.
of course, yeah. But I think a lot of people are actually, as you've mentioned, disrupting their ability to pay attention with things and communicate correctly, and then maybe not even mistaking it for ADHD or something like that. This is just an example, but a lot of people are
I
very
think there's
confused.
problems with just having identifiers like ADHD.
Yeah,
Like instead of using it in the way that I think we label people, and then it's like, oh, here's the thing you need to fix it, which is medication. Instead of how do we strategize how to fix it on our own? What makes me focus? What helps me find information I'm interested in? That's now my thing to sort out. ADHD is the dragon I gotta fucking slay.
mm,
You know, so if that means I get up early, if that means I meditate in the morning, if that means I need to journal before I start my day, if that means I hit the cold plunge before I do creative work, then that's up to me to be accountable to take those steps to focus instead of giving my power away to someone else who's identified me as not capable.
well, and also giving up on alternatives, which is what you're listing, right? Rather than just being like, oh, okay, I guess it's medication time. No, that should be a part of the equation, as you said. If it's still ADHD and that's part of the
And
treatment,
and and man, Adderall or whatever else, I'm not here to judge by any stretch. I think they should be used as performance enhancers.
Mm.
But if we're not using them and we're using them as a crutch, like we're gonna build a problem around that. Like we've got to have a holistic approach to go along with the medication.
Yeah, well, I
And
know
probably
people with ADHD, and it's, I have mates who have ADHD quite severely, and it's a lot different to just having an issue paying attention or having a short attention span, and like you said, so you're 100% right. We don't want, it's the same as antidepressants, right?
yeah, but I also would ask any of those people, especially the ones I know, like what serious strategy have you put into getting better at managing your focus, say the way that I got better at wanting to throw? Have you sought out different ways to try things? Have you worked on meditation? Have you tried journaling? Have you tried getting away from screens? Have you tried changing your nutrition?
These are the big questions. I feel like they're the problem we have now, I guess, and I'm finding as well. So I've also been a strength and conditioning coach for maybe about 8 years, and I find that people, to even focus on the slightest detail of just, hey, every week for just twice, do this for 10 minutes. Yep. Some people are like, I didn't get to it this week. And it's like, oh, okay, why didn't you get to it?
Let's quit pretending you give a shit. Like, I'm all right with that too. Like, I just don't beat yourself up for saying you want this change, because for some reason you think you need it, whether that's society tells you need to, but clearly you don't fucking care.
Yeah. Well, that's what I say. I say, do you want this particular thing? Oh yeah, well, of course.
It's cool if you don't.
Well, that's what I say. I'm like, if you don't give a shit, just don't worry about it. I've had people surprised, as when you're obviously someone who cares about your health, right? Someone turns around to you, I care about my health, and they go, oh, well, I just feel like I need to lose a bit of weight. And I'm like, do you care about having a stomach? Do you like drinking beer? And they're like, oh yeah, I like it. And I'm like, well, you're killing it. Keep doing what you want then, if you like it. Like,
cool. Is that worth dying younger?
Well, but if they're happy though,
is that worth saying? Of course, right? And is that worth saying no to a bunch of things later in life? Is that worth having health complications and what that's going to cost me financially in the future?
Not to me.
Those are real decisions to fucking make.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I think we're going to see a big switch of people who've decided to take control of all those things and want to be done paying for those who don't.
Well, it's the confrontation, right? I feel like people, as long as they can try to avoid that confrontation, but they don't actually want to have the conversation.
But we've also convinced a bunch of people that that's the fucking normal route, that we're crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
That we're obsessed and we're the unbalanced. That being accountable and disciplined and fucking choosing to eat foods that actually fuel your body and what it needs to do. That we're crazy.
I'm with you on that one.
That's programming too, man.
Yeah, I'm big around the. Look, I said to someone the other day, I said they were talking about like flexible dieting and stuff. I said that's cool. I get that as well. I said for me though, personally, there's nothing wrong with having a little bit of this or a little bit of that. I said, but still, meat and potatoes, I feel better when I eat that. I do, And they said, was that just in your head though? Because you're worried about the protein. I said, honestly, it just feels better. It's real food. It's, yeah.
I also don't have to fucking get permission to choose what I want to eat from anyone. I don't give a fuck what they eat.
Oh, yeah, of course. But the conversation was,
right?
Yeah.
In that conversation.
Yeah.
I'm with you. And I would also ask, well, when's the last time you didn't run a bunch of garbage through your machine?
Yeah.
Because do you know how it feels to not do that?
I think you and me can probably relate. I used to be a bit heavier as well. It sounds like you were at one point. So we've both eaten.
Yeah, about 100. About 100 pounds down from whatever my biggest was.
So what are you now then? I'm trying to think what I was in
215.
215. Yeah. Okay. So that's like, yeah. So I think that's like in 90, 95 kilos around that kind of mark, I think anyway.
Yeah, shit. I am under 100 kilos. That's fucking cool.
Yeah. It's probably healthier, right? So it's,
yeah. I mean, I also graduated high school like at 270 pounds.
Yeah, Americans are different, man. You guys are big.
Oh man, I hope just so your audience is talking about health, it's cannabis. In case anyone thinks I'm just sitting here smashing cigarettes.
I was going to ask. There's, I was assuming it was something else because
Hmm.
of the intermittent kind of the way you were
Yeah.
smoking it. I'm like, I've never seen anyone smoke a cigarette and take this long to do it. So that's definitely
No,
something.
no, it's a joint.
Hey, man, you're enjoying yourself. I
I'm a grown
smoked.
man in a state that it's legal.
Yeah, man, I smoked for about 10 years, but I had a really bad experience with it and unfortunately can't smoke anymore. And it's devastating because here it's not legal, but it's actually starting to become a little bit more like you can get it prescribed here now.
Right on. Good. You guys
So,
moving to the future. That's great.
well, yeah, I think it's because to be honest, half the reason I may have even had a bad experience, man, is because you're just getting it from like a friend, right? You're just getting it from some random
Of
dude.
course.
Yeah, it'd be cool to have. I know you guys have like all these different strains that help with anxiety and all that sort of stuff.
It's like I allegedly I think they do all that. I believe there's a lot of placebo involved in that industry of people who want help for a certain feeling, and that placebo effect's always worked.
Oh yeah, I think it's probably just a little bit more black and white, right? Like there's just stuff that's like really strong and
Also,
then stuff that's not too bad.
but also as a tool when it comes to anxiety or any of that, I really like it. Not for getting rid of it, but for illuminating it. For me being able to check my shit and be like, oh, what's going on over there? Why am I thinking about that so much? What am I panicked about? Like using that as a tool to look in at like what's actually going on before it becomes such a big fucking red flag that it's ruining my life.
Well, I know that that's I don't know. I don't want to relay it, but there's I said before you'd made some life choices. You you were living life a kind of certain way at some point, and then made some drastic changes. Am I right? Where I don't know if you'd left a relationship and things like that
Yeah,
at some
yeah. So
point.
yeah, I got divorced and it was, after my knee went bad. Um Kind of just got in a really bad space, man. It was I was totally prepared to not compete in the Highland Games anymore, but I wasn't prepared to be unable to physically do things. And at that point, like when my knee had gone through all the surgeries and chronic pain had really kicked in for those like 3 years, I mean, I couldn't walk more than like 200 yards a day, and I'm traveling with a cane for a period of time. I'm like
Wow.
keeping my leg in a straight leg brace and like going from second in the world to that level of physical restriction. And it's not just like the boredom or physical restriction, right? But like I realized in all of that, all of my fucking confidence and all of my discipline and all of my ability to delay gratification and persevere and hold myself accountable came from athletics. Like because I excelled in that, I learned all of those lessons. And if I would have never been given the opportunity to be athletic, I would have never learned those skills. So whether or not my body can keep up anymore, now it's my job to take what I learned during that chapter and be able to move forward. But when things got dark, yeah, man, I didn't know how things were going to go. I knew that if I didn't get out of chronic pain, I wouldn't survive the whole thing. I don't know how many years that would have taken, but at some point I wouldn't have continued. And having a real honest conversation with myself of not feeling obligated to exist um, opened the doors to be able to say, well, then what's the risk of trying anything out there to get better?
So
Because
was that a big?
if we can't solve it, right on. We're not obligated to be here, but we damn sure have to turn over every stone.
Yeah, but I mean, but you like I would say relationship is
Yeah.
one of the largest parts of life for most people, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that without obviously the personal side of things, why was that such a big part of what needed to change? Was it just not aligning with the person you were with and needing to explore
Um,
yourself?
my ex-wife and I got together like when we were 22, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we had various ideas of what I think life would look like, and mine changed a ton throughout the course of our relationship. And I was really not interested in living in any type of normal manner once I realized I didn't have to. And by that, like, yeah, I want to travel all the time. I don't want to be as stable and go to the same places and do the same shit week in and week out. And she functions a lot better with that routine and community and being around her family and doing all that. And like, man, I love the life I have and how much lunacy there is in it. But if this isn't what you're into, being dragged through this fucking life sucks. And I wasn't interested in not living this way, and nor am I interested in forcing someone else to. And we had a lot of things, man. We had me getting fucked up and hurt and getting depressed. We had me rearranging and changing my life. And then, had a couple years where we had tried to have a kid and weren't able to. And that rearranged a bunch of stuff for us as a couple. And it just was too much. It was just more than we were ever able to bounce back from. And lucky enough, I'm still able to say my ex-wife's someone I love a lot and that she's a friend and I can call on her. And I wish her and her husband well and want nothing but the best for her. There isn't anyone else I should have spent those years of my life with.
Do you think it's more about now finding, not necessarily that it's about it, but anyway, obviously you'd probably want to be in a relationship again at some point. And do you think it's just about...
I'm remarried.
Oh, you're remarried. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, wow. Okay. Is that, and it's with someone whose values align a little bit more with yours and you can travel?
Someone who's basically living the exact same life I am.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. That would have been my question. Are you going to find that person? You already have. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been phenomenal.
Yeah. Well, I suppose that's the fear that everyone has,
right? Like it's the fear of, holy shit, I've been in this relationship for 13 years. What's that look like? Now what am I going to be dating someone? That's stupid. We've already it's like, you feel like you've already gotten past that, solving that problem of life. And it feels crazy to resolve it.
Yeah.
But if you're not where you want to be, I suggest giving it a go. And I mean, and make no mistake, dude, I left a really good marriage. But I want great. And I think she deserves great too. And that wasn't going to be with me.
Yeah, it's about, I guess, there's no right thing in terms of a general sense, but there's right for you as well. And I think, like you said, that's really what you're looking for, because sometimes something can be good, and it's good enough. But for who? Is it good enough for you? Obviously it wasn't. It's a big decision that you made, and then it worked out for both of you. So I'm taking something from this, and I think people that are listening will, because unfortunately it's, oh man, I know a lot of people that are in situations that are just in them because it's like, I know this, it's familiar, I'm comfortable.
Yeah, I'm not into that comfortability anywhere.
No. Yeah.
That's kind of the thing that I always want gone, because I find when I'm comfortable, I get on autopilot. And I don't want to really spend any time on autopilot, because, man, I know when I'm on autopilot, weeks and months just disappear, and I don't have anything to tell you that fucking happened with my life. And I really want to make every week count. I want to make every chance I get to live doing something I love possible.
Well, this is a big part of it, and brings us to the not dead yet kind of approach. I remember being, as I said to you, I was recommended. I'm going to shout out Nate personally, because I know he's listening to this podcast and he's probably enjoying it.
What's up, Nate?
What up, Nate? There you go. Thanks for the
Nate, shoot me a DM. I'll shoot you some gear out.
There you go. Shoot you some gear out. That's awesome. So the not dead yet concept, when he explained it to me, and this is, like I said, this is a while ago, I was like immediately interested. Like this week countdown concept.
Yep.
So
that's kind of my memento mori.
Yeah.
It's that, remember you're going to die.
But it's morbid.
It's all this special.
Morbid for some people.
Morbid. It's a celebration that today exists.
But for some people, right? Like, have you had that response? Sure. Has some people been like, hey, whoa, why are you counting down? Because I think it's great. Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, of course, right? But
right.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. Like, to me, like, because to me, I don't see it as morbid at all. I don't feel uncomfortable. Like, my parents are dead. Like, I don't feel weird about that sort of thing, and I can have conversations, right? And so, but for
it's not a fear of death, right?
No, of course.
It's I'm friends with it.
Mm.
That time's coming. I am on a collision course with a point where I won't exist anymore. There's nothing I can do to get off that ride. I can shorten it, but it's coming. And so what I do between here and there is the story I'm in control of. And I damn sure don't want to sit there waiting for more hours at the end of it. I got them now. I only get to be 40 once. I mean, having this place here dope, and having this community and coaching and mentoring and being able to travel the way we do and public speak and do stages. I won't do this for the rest of my life. I don't know what the next thing will be, but I guarantee it'll get me there. It's doing this well will open the door to the next thing.
And so what inspired this? What inspired this way of thinking? You haven't obviously always thought this way.
My dad passed away in 2014 of pancreatic cancer, and died after a 11-month fight with it. And the last 3 months are really ugly. Like, really just watch fucking cancer steal someone from you while they're just a shell. He passed away the day before my birthday, and I had turned 31 as he was 62, and like the only thing I could think about was that I was halfway through my life. And I'm halfway through all of it. That all my dreams and all my adventures and all the things I've ever dreamed about wanting to experience need to happen in the other half of my life. And I think about how fast the first half of my life felt to that moment, or like it does to right now. And that's how the other half will feel too when I'm 80. And so being intentional with it forced me to kind of look at it. And what it broke down to is 1,612 weeks. That's what I got left till I'm 62. Anything past that, man, great. Extra time. But I want to damn sure make the most of those days the way I want to. I damn sure don't want to sell them to someone else doing something I hate.
That's a good way to look at it.
So it works for me.
Well, yeah, I
No
certainly.
how big an ass kicking you take, no matter how tough a day is, no matter how whatever it is, you're not dead yet. You can change it all. You're not obligated to do a fucking thing that you did yesterday. Change all of it. Blow the whole thing up. Start over. It takes less than 10 years to get great at something. So pick.
It's powerful stuff, man. I can, unfortunately, relate in a similar way, and I guess that's sort of it's not a nice thing to
No.
yeah. My mum had cancer.
No, it's not my favorite warm and fuzzy thought,
No. But yeah, my mum had cancer, and I had to experience that as well, and it changed a lot in the way I feel. Similar, in the same sense that, personally, I can't own anything now, and most of what I own is sitting here with me at this desk. I have a suitcase, and I can't own anything more than that. I throw out everything I owned, and I literally, for some reason, cannot own anything more than that. And I don't know if it's a good thing, and I don't know if it's a bad thing. And I suppose I'm choosing to.
How about it just is what it is right now?
Oh yeah,
Like, do you
definitely.
look? And here's something to like have some solace in. This'll change, and that's cool. When it's time for it to change and you feel differently about things, explore that too. Don't continue to be a guy who doesn't own anything. Like, if you're called to it, follow. But eliminating your attachment to material bullshit, big head start, my friend. Good work.
Yeah, thanks, man. I guess I chose to
live as a nomad and any of that shit. Good work.
Yeah.
It's already fucking punching out of the regular bullshit trap that everyone else is caught in. buying a bunch of shit to impress people that don't give a fuck.
Well, you chose to share that with me, so I chose to share that with you. I felt like that's, like you said, at the moment we can't be in the same room, but we can relate
Yeah,
in a
man.
way that if
Yeah, and I'm
something
sorry,
happened.
dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
Terribly sorry for it, man. Anyone that goes through it like that,
Yeah.
but that brush with death is a gift. It doesn't have to be your own death. Sometimes it's a death of identity. Sometimes it's a death of a chapter, a death of a relationship, or death of a family member. But
Mm.
there's a realization to how special things are because they're happening right now.
Yeah. And not knowing when things are going to happen. I suppose what you said, your old man was 62. Yeah. So my mom was 60. And I remember thinking to myself, why the fuck am I treating it like I'm going to live to 100? Because that shit can, I could be halfway now. I
I'm
could
not
be,
guaranteed to get home tonight,
right? Yeah.
but I spent today doing things I love.
Mm.
That's all right.
Yeah.
I'm not fucking waiting to live. I'm not fucking saving a bunch of money and putting it away because of this one day that I hope I have time to spend it.
What do you think? Like you said, it's a shame that your old man can't see a lot of what you're doing. I often think the same sort of thing. What do you think he would think about the way the brand
Oh,
and kind of, yeah.
I think he'd be wildly impressed and tickled by it. I think
Did
there
he?
would have been a lot of years of confusion, but I think he would find it. I think he would find it equally as in on the joke as I feel about it.
Yeah.
I can't fucking believe any of this works. I love what I do and I've worked my ass off for it. But I can't believe that I get to do this for a living.
And when you say do this for a living, obviously you do multiple different things, and
That's it. I get to I get to create for a living. That's how I look at it.
Mm.
And anything for me that scratches the itch and can fall into that category of can I create? Did I create for a living? Is a plus.
Yeah.
So whether that's create apparel, whether that's create impact through writing, or whether that's create momentum in the people I work with, or whether that's create accountability or create discipline or be able to create motivation from speaking on stage or creating content, or create experiences for people to share with us when they travel or come to our retreats. I want to create for a living. I can't fucking believe I get to do that.
Yeah. It's cool, man. It's I
Of
don't.
all the jobs in human history, I got a really cool one.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. I can't imagine just sitting in like an office, and not that there's anything wrong with that. Doing, if someone's enjoying that good on you. But I couldn't do it either. So I have to say that I certainly look up to you and what you do, and it's something that I want to do myself, because for me it's not about.
You're already doing it.
Oh yeah, for sure, is absolutely. But to a
You're
point
already
where,
doing it.
yeah, I still work part time. You know what I mean, stuff like that. But that's.
Sure.
But obviously you started the same way, right? You didn't just jump into it.
No, I left a real big boy job that was paying a lot.
What did you do before? What was your like regular job?
I worked outside sales in the oil and gas industry, was, making close to 200 grand a year.
Yeah, that's a big thing to leave.
And I got fired from one of the places I was at, could have found other work. I'd worked in that industry for a decade and I chose to do this. And so if we're going to choose to do this and we choose to detonate that fucking old life and decide we're going to run this thing the way we want to by our rules, I ain't never fucking looking back, man.
Mm.
That's honor to that fucking old life too. Damn sure didn't blow that one up to live one that looked just like it.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely. I hear what you're saying there. I mean, I think I'd like to. I don't know. Do you have any kind of, I guess, additional advice for someone trying to do what you do, in the sense that for a lot of people, I guess they kind of go, all right, that's all good and well. You can tell me to change. You can tell me to do this. But like, where is the, don't even know how to, I guess, even put it. I know myself. I have recently I've got like two sponsors on this podcast, and then I had like two or three other companies randomly send me out things, and I was like, I remember like I got like I'm going to mention it in a minute, but I got like a couple of cartons of like a drink just for free,
Yeah,
just
man.
because they were like, oh yeah, man, you talked about us, and
I can't believe that's ever worked out for me. I can't believe Monster has sponsored me for 5 years.
this is what I mean. You must have had so much now, and I haven't listened to every episode, so I don't know every single thing that you've been sponsored by. But
Sure.
uh, for me, I found just literally just kind of being in over your head and just reaching out actually works a shitload better than you think.
Yep.
um, what's your take on it?
I mean, that's how I started. I started reaching out to companies, and I started reaching out to companies that made products I was already spending money on. I felt if I could get them for free, that's the same as money.
Mm.
So started with a couple supplement companies then, but I mean, you also figure I got 10 years of outside sales. So building relationships and doing that side of the job, I'm naturally pretty good at. I've got a lot of repetition. um, and then working with companies or any of that, man, be valuable. Everybody sits on that side of the table with the influencer thing or whatever we're going to call it with their hand out. Make quality content. Work. Show people you're valuable because it's cheaper to pay you a little bit for good content than it is to hire people to make good content.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
And you can
I
test it over and over and over again.
well, you got Monster, which is
Mm-hmm.
I don't know,
Yeah, I've got a bunch of great
huge.
sponsors. Monster's been awesome for a number of years. I work with On It, Plunge with the cold plunge, Sweat Tent with tents. I've got a company that's taking care of my nutrition stuff with meal prep. Um, and I get my like hormone replacement therapy through another great company, Core Medical.
I was going to mention that earlier. I was curious about whether when you were doing any of the strength stuff, if you were using any testosterone.
So I didn't until I got out of the Highland Games. I didn't get on gear until I'd finished competing. So I didn't take any during strongman or powerlifting. That was kind of like the first two sports I did.
Mm.
And no moral reason other than just I had never been on and was scared of it. Um, and then once I got injured and was trying to heal, I got on. And so I had taken blood work back when I had done 30 to kind of see what levels were at. And my test was already trashed by then. It was like 80. And so getting on HRT, I did after getting out of the Highland Games. Highland Games drug tested a shitload.
I wasn't sure around that, but then when obviously you mentioned
Yeah.
you competed in sleeve somewhere, and I was like, that must have been drug tested
Well,
in
I
the
mean,
States somewhere.
APF, but the APF and all the heavy gear wasn't. I just was clean. I just didn't give a shit.
Oh yeah, no, that wouldn't have been. But obviously you mentioned that you competed raw as well, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
likely they probably would have done because if you were on a lot
Yeah,
of
I
gear,
was. I
yeah.
wouldn't have. I didn't take anything performance enhancing wise until like 34, 30, 33, 34.
And is it just testosterone replacement therapy or
Yeah, that's really all I take now.
yeah? I know growth hormone's huge in the States. You never
Look, I took a
experienced it.
bunch of it when my knee was fucked up because I was throwing everything at it.
Mm,
And growth's expensive. I didn't notice a ton of benefit. And
okay.
it takes like 6 months before you notice anything. Man, I hate to rush you, but I got a couple folks who've just come in the gym. We're gonna get in some jujitsu.
No, absolutely. That's man. It's hard to. I completely forgot about the time. We were going at it.
Yeah, no worries, man. It's been
Man,
great.
it has been. It's also been over an hour, so I apologize. Normally, I wouldn't keep you that long. Thank you for your time, man. And I appreciate every minute we've been talking. Thank you for every kind of bit of advice that you were able to offer me, and it was good to connect with you in the I guess limited way we were able to.
Man, best option we got.
Absolutely.
Jacob, I appreciate it, dude. I really, it's been a really, really great conversation, dude. Keep going for it.
Thanks, man. Absolutely. I hope we run into each other again, and I'll
Yeah,
speak to you soon.
you keep doing it long enough, we will.
Man, absolutely. We're not dead yet.
Yeah, man. Damn right. I
Thanks,
appreciate you,
man.
brother.
See you,
Damn
bro.
right.
All right. I got carried away there, and we talked for a little bit longer than I expected. Lost track of time, and Matthew had to go. This is becoming a bit of a theme. I should probably try to limit them a little bit more, I suppose. I will give a shout out to Achievement Apex, Power Pit Rockingham, where I am right now. And my mother, as always, big thanks to Matthew Vincent for coming on. That has been another podcast. Thank you for listening. We'll see you on the next one.